Welcome to Scrolling to Death. Today, I am joined by a mom named Lisa who's going to tell us about her son, Isaac. And, there are so many online harms these days that parents are having to get educated on. And unfortunately, Lisa, you have become familiar with one in particular. And we'll talk about that today and how parents can try to protect their children. First, I want to back up and have you tell us about Isaac. Just anything you want to share about him. I'd love to get to know him.
Where do I start? Isaac was the most loving, beautiful boy. Never shied away from his emotions. And if you was Isaac's friend, it was a true friendship. He had a very small group of friends, but they were very, very truthful friends. And one of his friends came over from Dubai and had never really experienced UK life. But Isaac took him into the fold and they became really, really good friends, and they were like brothers. They're absolutely, their relationship was beautiful. Isaac was very inquisitive, again, like to know how things worked. Used to go on YouTube, understanding like weird facts. Like it was like, there used to be a guy called Coyote about like insect bites and things like that. And like the most feminist, insects or reptiles and things like that. And when he used to be really tiny, he used to come bounding into the bedroom, tell us facts of the day. And that's every day, it'd be like the fact of the day, Isaac's going to tell us this, and he knew about the space, the universe. He actually, when he was in school, I think I don't know what the equivalent is for the US, but he was in probably about year 3 or 4 in UK, and he told about some factual bits about space, and the teacher said, "Oh, I didn't even know about that." And like I was like, "Yeah, well, I knew." Yeah, honestly, and that stems from his dad, because his dad is very into facts, history. And that instilled into Isaac. He was very, very meticulous about how things worked, understanding stuff, which we absolutely adored. And he was very inquisitive about when the early stages of TikTok, like when there was the challenges and things like that, when everything was very innocent. You had the ice bucket tap challenge and the dance stuff and everything, so we was all like, oh yeah, we're all up for that, it's all fun, but in a whole, he was our boy. He was his friendship group, they all loved him. He even had children in his school older than him that had him as a friend. So he was year 7, and unfortunately, lockdown deprived him of a lot of schooling. But he had friendship groups of in year 10, year 11, even all coming up to him because he was just so approachable. He was just like a beautiful boy.
Oh, thank you for sharing. And he sounds a lot like my son, who's 7 now, and he does have older friends who are more like 11, 12, and when they see each other at school, they give each other hugs and like knuckles, and I'm always yeah. So it sounds like too he was using YouTube, but like for educational purposes, which is like would be great if that was all it was, and if there was a version of it, of the algorithms on social media that served safe educational content. But that's unfortunately not how it worked, not how it still works. And so he was an early user of TikTok, and he was kind of intrigued by that. And you thought it was safe, right? Like, what were your initial thoughts about what TikTok was?
Well, yeah. So to backtrack about YouTube, exactly that. We didn't even know. I don't even know if YouTube Kids was a thing back then.
Yeah.
So we didn't even think anything was going to be intrusive into his mind, because he was so inquisitive about how things would work, and like as I was saying about the Coyote stuff. With the TikTok thing, Isaac has an older sibling, And because my daughter had TikTok,
Mhm.
we was holding off as long as possible. And we just said, like, obviously, when you go to secondary school, we will think about you having a phone
Mhm.
because obviously communication, because it was out of area as well.
Mhm.
But he kept saying, oh, please can I have TikTok, please can I have TikTok. So in 2021, I believe, we said, okay, right, you can have TikTok because your sister's got it. And we didn't even know there was anything sinister on that.
Of course
All it
not.
was is fun. It was fun, dances, yeah, all happy,
Mhm.
everyone, like, especially through lockdown again, it was all like everyone expressing themselves, like, oh, yeah, come on, we're all in it together, we're doing all this, that.
Yeah.
So reluctantly, we was holding off, and then that peer pressure almost came across that now he's 11, going into secondary school, he's out of
Mhm.
area, we give him his first smartphone, and yes, you can have TikTok, but please be aware, don't talk to anyone you don't know.
Mhm.
All the right acts that every parent would give, that, you don't talk to strangers, you
Of
don't
course.
give any information across that you don't feel happy with. If
Mhm.
anything is unusual and you feel threatened, come talk to mum and dad. We did all that. We did
Mhm.
all that. So we we sadly, we passed him a device, an app that has ended in what we are in now. And can't help but think that we've handed him a hand grenade that has destroyed our family. But in reflection, we know we did all the right things, and
Yes.
we just
Right.
want, yeah, sorry.
You did, Lisa, and you did what almost every parent in the whole world is doing, is giving their kid a smartphone when the time seems right and talking to them about what they understand to be the harms. But the problem lies in that the companies aren't telling us the truth about how the algorithms work and what type of content they're serving to children, or nor the addiction of the platforms either. And I wonder if you saw any changes after he started using TikTok in Isaac.
No, that's the strange thing. I think the behavioural changes, really, to be honest with you, is through the lockdown times, where they're deprived of having their friendship groups around them.
Yeah.
Um, and I do think strongly this is the catalytic point that
Mhm.
children have been more consumed by
Mhm.
these platforms because they had nowhere else to go,
Yeah.
and they seek these platforms as their friends, their community, their ability to. I don't know if it's the same thing in the US. FOMO, fear of missing
Mhm.
out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So
Yes.
they're constantly wanting to know what's going on because they're so
Mhm.
constricted in their little tiny
Yeah.
box, and as I say, Isaac went to school out of area, so his friends weren't in a close
Mhm.
vicinity, so he couldn't just go around the park and have a quick walk with them, whatever. Off
Yeah.
the record, I did once or twice send him to his friends, just have a walk around.
That's okay.
For the humanity, for God's sake, this is like a 13-year-old boy, caged, the energy.
And it was catastrophic what we're seeing now, even years
Oh,
later, how that affected putting the kids on devices all day for school, and then what are they supposed to do the rest of the day if they can't go out besides play video games and go on social media and message their
exactly.
friends?
Like
It was too much.
the first lockdown, Nikki, the schools, they weren't prepared. They were like all
Right.
over the place, which is understandable. And they
Yeah.
tried to submit homework and stuff to the children. And I remember Isaac getting very, very stressed about it. And he got so stressed about it, he said, I'm not going to do it. And I remember having arguments with my own child. I've never had arguments before, saying, "Oh no, you must do your homework. You've got to do this, blah blah blah." And then, like, I remember my husband saying to me, "You're having arguments with Isaac, like, about homework." I was like,
Mhm.
"Hang on a minute." I stripped it right back, and I thought, do you know what? I am not doing this again. I'm getting upset. Isaac's getting upset.
Mhm.
If he doesn't want to submit his homework, my relationship with my son is more important
Mhm.
in like this situation. And
Absolutely.
and then when the second lockdown happened, I just said to Isaac, submit whatever you can.
Yeah.
Don't get beaten up by it.
Mhm.
I do not want to fall out with you through this.
Yeah.
It was damaging, and it really upset me that first time because I've never had these arguments with him before. Obviously, the normal stuff,
Yeah.
parent
Sure.
child, but this
Yeah.
was like, oh my God, the government is telling me that I should be telling my child to do this homework, and we're falling out over it. And
Yeah.
like, yeah.
And it's all online, and kids get really frustrated doing these online assignments. It is very frustrating to them, let alone the amount of screen time and how that's associated with outbursts and anger and frustration and all of these things. And so that was probably the best approach is just whatever we can manage is what happens here. And um, but in aside from the schoolwork, he was also because he wasn't able to go anywhere. I assume he was just spending more time on YouTube, TikTok, whatever platforms he was using.
Yeah, he was a big fan of Fortnite.
Okay,
So,
right.
yeah.
Okay.
So he engaged with his friends through that.
Hmm.
Um, what he used to do, which I could never understand, but he used to have his mobile phone uh, by his Xbox, and then he used to be talking. He used to be playing his Fortnite game whilst talking
Hmm.
to his friends via his phone. So that was his communication. Um,
Okay. Was
so
it through Discord or was he on a phone call?
A lot of the time it was a phone call. He
Okay.
did used to do Discord,
Okay.
but we said to him, you have to be extremely vigilant about this
Yeah.
because people can join in who are not your
Yes.
friends and stuff. And that's the most frustrating thing as well. He knew all this because we gave him what we call the Riot Act right from the beginning of giving devices, PlayStations or Xboxes, tablets, whatever, that if
Hmm.
there's anybody that comes upon your platform you do not know, do not respond.
Right.
And yeah, that was a Riot Act right from the beginning. And he even used to
Yeah.
come to us going, oh, like this person's come trying to contact me. It's like, oh, well, just,
Uh-huh.
yeah, block them. So he was very,
Yeah.
yeah, he's very
That's the goal is come to us, right? And we're not going to get mad at you. And come to us. We're your safe space. We will help you.
Exactly. It's the open dialogue. We had that right from the beginning. We had as well, we had the device rule for mobile phones. No mobile phones at the dining table. No
Hmm.
mobile devices from after 9 o'clock. If your phone needs to
Yeah.
be charged, it'll be charged in our room or downstairs. So we had that curfew all along.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
because we instilled it that early age, they didn't question it. It was all
Hmm.
like, yeah, yeah, we'll do that. And that I think that is a crucial thing, installing that stuff from an early age. They will not question it. If you're going to install that from 13 onwards, they're going to be resilient. They're going to be like, well, no, I have my mobile phone, but
Hmm.
doing it from a young age, that's the key factor.
Yeah. Whenever I talk to families who've been through something like you've been through, almost all of them did all these things, did everything they knew to do, had all the conversations, were the safe space, took away the phones at night, which is really important because a lot of the bad stuff happens at night. They're really tired. They make worse decisions at nighttime, and they don't get sleep, and it affects everything. So that's why it's just so shocking to hear when families like you are affected by an online harm that you could never have anticipated. And so, can you tell parents now, whatever you're comfortable sharing about what happened on March 8th, 2022?
Yeah. So an ordinary day. It was an ordinary day. So Isaac and my daughter used to go to school out of area.
Mm.
So I'd always go and take them to school, pick them up from school. That day, picked him up from school, and it used to be, I don't know if your children do this, but it's a race to get into the front seat.
No,
Get the front seat.
they're not old enough to sit in the front seat yet, but I
Um,
can't that will happen soon. I remember doing that as a child.
Right. So it always used to be the race to get into the front seat,
Uh-huh.
and whoever got sat in the back was like the loser. So Isaac,
Yeah.
a competitive boy, would say like I could see him running down the street to like get there first.
Mhm.
So anyway, he lost that day. He was in the back seat. Anyway, so
Uh-huh.
we drove to home. Isaac, very, very slim, but ate like a horse. A
Mhm.
growing
Yeah,
boy would
sure.
eat for England.
Yeah.
So anyway, so we came in from school. He grabbed a great big handful of Doritos,
Mhm.
raced upstairs, and I said to him, like, "Don't eat anymore because dinner's going to be very, very soon."
Yeah.
Um, I went upstairs about 20 minutes later, and he was sitting on the edge of his bed, and I said, like, "Isaac, don't eat anymore, mate. So we're gonna have dinner." He's like, "Yeah, yeah, I'm fine." Um, and I had to change his bed sheets because he had ink all over his hands. He was a bit. I think a lot of boys are very fidgety, and he used to
Mhm.
like break pens off and like. Oh, anyway, he had
Mhm.
a messy
Oh
hands.
god. Whatever is on my son's hands all the time, I could never tell you. I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyhow, so I went back downstairs. Dinner was cooked, and so I shouted upstairs. And just to give you a backstory, sorry,
Yeah.
Key. Isaac used to be a bit of a practical joker as well.
Mhm.
Um, Sometimes he'd jump out on you, make
Mhm.
you jump, and sometimes he wouldn't answer you. So like you're like, "Isaac, where are you?" And like he would never answer, and then like he'd jump out at you and like, yeah,
Yeah.
scare the heebie-jeebies out of you.
Yeah.
That was his thing. Anyway, so his dinner was ready, and I shouted upstairs, and no answer. So I thought, oh, yeah, perhaps he's not hearing me. Perhaps he's gaming or something.
Mhm.
So I shouted out again, no answer. And I'm thinking, hang on a minute, Isaac would be running down the stairs by now because food,
Mhm.
he was just like, he loved his food.
Yeah.
So I went running up the stairs. He wasn't in his bedroom. And I saw that the bathroom door was closed. Again, Isaac would always close the bathroom door and lock it, just for his personal,
Sure. Yep.
situation, which
Yeah.
we never questioned before.
Mhm.
Um, and so I knocked on the door, no answer, and I thought, oh, he's playing a prank again, not answering. Um, and then I knocked again. I went, Isaac, dinner, come on, mate. Um, no answer. And I'm thinking, now this is not right.
Mhm.
And I called one more time, no answer. So I ran down the stairs, went into the garage, got a hammer, ran back upstairs, and I banged down the door, which broke the lock.
Mhm.
And that's where I found Isaac, with a ligature around his neck.
Mm.
And that's when my world fell apart. And we called my daughter, bless her, she was a strength from beyond. She was in
Oh.
control of calling 911. And then they got on the phone, um, instructing me how to do CPR. Uh, and then I think it was 2 ambulances came, um, and managed to get his heartbeat back, which was very, very weak.
Mm.
His pulse was very
Mhm.
weak. He went to a very local hospital, but they couldn't do much more for him. So he was sent to a London hospital called St Mary's, which is a
Mhm.
PICU unit. And they worked unbelievably tirelessly to keep him alive. But he had organ failure where he was out for so long, and he passed March 9th at 3:45.
I'm so sorry, Lisa. These things happened so fast. What do you think? What did you think had happened? Because you couldn't have thought he did this on purpose.
No, back before then, he was filming himself doing, passing out, getting a euphoria. He
Did you
was
know that beforehand, or you found
n
that afterward?
no idea. No idea whatsoever, and, only after Isaac's passing, after his devices were passed to, the authorities or the police,
Hmm.
um, they came across 3 videos of Isaac acting out, um, him putting his hands around his neck to pass out for this euphoria.
Hmm.
They stopped going back, so this was, I don't know, this was early, February, March time, but they didn't pursue it any further because they saw that these evidence of videos were enough.
Mm.
Um, but because the police are completely alienated, they don't understand that they really should have contacted the platforms to say, like, "Hey, like, this incident has been a causation of," do you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. Because why is he filming it? Because he might want to be posting it, right? And there's no
Well,
record of him
yeah, I
posting
mean,
his videos?
yeah, I mean, there's no evidence. Again, we don't have evidence that he
I
did
know.
post it, but
Right.
there's evidence that he filmed himself.
Hmm.
There's evidence he's filmed himself. Unfortunately, I do have that. What comes around about these videos is that it sounds like he's done it multiple times, because where he said, "I've had to have a rest because it's hurt my nose," and like it's, oh, Nikki, honestly, in that inquest, hearing those videos and that he's come around from being revived from unconsciousness and then laughing, that was the anger, thinking, "You are an intelligent boy. Why are
Yeah.
you doing this? What do you think could be the possible outcome?"
Well, where do you think that he learned about this, now knowing what you know
Right,
now?
right. Well, when the inquest happened, the head of the inquest even mentioned that even if Isaac hadn't watched this particular, challenge, he has got
Mhm.
it from somewhere.
Yeah.
He's been influenced by someone or something he's watched through a third party,
Mhm.
and she was very happy to actually mention that. So, Isaac had a very, very close friend that he used to speak to a lot, and I the audio on the videos are quite muffled, so you can't really hear how he's talking, but it sounds like he's been talking to somebody, and it leads that he may be talking to one of his friends who has also done this sort of act. But again, this is all speculation. But
Mhm.
we can't, again, like all of us, we cannot guarantee that he's actually watched this particular challenge, but he's
Mhm.
been influenced through a third party, or he's been shown about this challenge. My
Yeah.
son did not think on his own terms, "I'm going to see if I can pass out and feel fine," and like, do you know what I mean?
No.
This is not a natural.
No. No. And I just spoke with Joanne Bogard. Do you know Joanne? She lost her son Mason at 15 to choking challenge a few years ago. And the different videos, so she goes on almost every day to these platforms and reports these type of videos. They almost never get taken down. But she was describing to me all the different ways that kids do these breath holding challenges and blowing on a thumb, and just these really things no one would think of out of nowhere, right? Just things that someone had to have come up with it in the beginning, but these things that go viral online and get served to millions of children in algorithms because these things get a lot of engagement and get a lot of views. And so we know now that there have been thousands of children that have passed away, known children, there's probably more, from the choking challenge, that these videos are being promoted on social media platforms. So we can assume that he learned about it through one of the social media platforms that he was engaging with. And you're leaning towards TikTok, that it was the one that introduced it to him potentially. Tell me about that.
Yeah, the thing is that Isaac was on TikTok, but again,
Mhm.
we can't view what he was. There's only a
Yeah.
certain amount of stuff I can go onto his phone. The instance now is that the police,
Mhm.
once they found those videos, they stopped going back any further. That was it. They didn't seek any additional information. They didn't go to the social media platforms. That was it. It was a very insular case. And the other thing to note, Nikki, is that when this happens to you, you are completely, unbelievably like a lost cause. You are just held through the process. Like you don't know, like, oh, so they've taken your device, your son's devices, they're going off to be processed. Oh, because of COVID, there's going to be a huge like backlog of trying to find information, the resources, blah blah blah. And then you get your inquest, and you're like, oh, you're like a sheep. You're just going through it all because you're completely lost. Now we've
Mhm.
had reflection of like, hang on a minute, perhaps I should not have had that inquest because I didn't have time to process my child's death. And like, yeah, we've had this inquest and we've just been consumed and we've just gone, okay, yes, yes, okay, yes. We're just like a nodding dog. And
Yeah.
now 2 years and a bit, it's like, no, this is not right. And now I wished I had never, ever closed that inquest because there's too many questions unanswered. And here in the UK, if you want to open an inquest and if you want to go any further, you have to go to the High Court and
Mhm.
it's going to cost you up to 84,000 UK
Oh
pounds.
my gosh.
How on earth would you get that money? Why? And so it begs to me now, any parent that unfortunately is coming up to this situation, hold off to your inquest as long as possible. Get those facts, get that information, because
Mhm.
and no, obviously on the new Online Safety Act in the
Mhm.
UK, it's
Yeah.
saying that coroners have the right to get additional information. It's too late, sadly, for us, unless we go to open up the inquest for the High Court, which is going to cost us 80-odd thousand pounds.
Okay. But you are entering into a lawsuit against TikTok here in the US with a few other families who've experienced this as well. What are you hoping to get out of that situation? Yeah.
Um, right. Okay. So the hope is accountability.
Yeah.
Accountability. And it's not just the UK, it's not just the US, it is
No.
worldwide.
Yep.
This problem is substantial. It can't just fall into small segments. It is a global collaboration, a fight against this social media platforms.
Mhm.
Accountability. One of our parents in the bereaved families for online safety actually put it to word perfect: corporate
Yeah.
manslaughter. The thing is, as well, TikTok, as you know, has that fantastic report saying we don't promote any harmful content, challenges, suicidal content. They
Mhm.
purely do. It's a breach of their own conduct. I have reported on many times of whole breath challenges and a comeback
Mhm.
no violation. When they've provided statements on some of our media outlets on
Mhm.
UK, like the BBC, etc., they've come back with corporate. Can I use the word bullshit?
Sure. Yeah.
Come back with corporate bullshit. that they
Yeah.
have best intentions. They've got alignment of not having these content available on their site. Yes, you
Mhm.
do. So corporate manslaughter, I'm saying, is pretty much on the cards.
So you actually set up your own TikTok account and checked it
Yeah.
recently, right? Just in January.
Yeah.
And you were able to find breath holding challenge
Yeah.
videos, report them, and them not get removed.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
And on YouTube.
And I know that on TikTok, they've made it kind of hard to search for some of these things, but that doesn't mean they're not there. And that doesn't mean they're not getting promoted to children.
I tell you, if you put in Minecraft, hold breath, you're going to find it
Jeez. Okay.
because it's done as a childlike thing.
Yeah.
And for a thing, again, if a parent is walking past their child, looking over their shoulder, oh, they're looking at a Minecraft thing. Oh, that's no problem.
Yeah.
What? It is just.
What would you advise to parents after everything you've learned regarding social media access, dangerous challenges? Like, what are the things that come up for you regarding what parents need to know?
Well, that's a big
I know.
a
Sorry.
big question to answer. Right.
Yeah.
So, firstly, myself and Holly are proactive in going to schools, as I said, and we've always said to these parents, the main thing to have is that transparency between you and your child, having that open dialogue.
Hmm.
Don't make your child feel like they are
That you're
not
not a
that
safe
they feel
space for them.
uncomfortable, that they've not the one who seeked out this information. The
Right.
information or the content is seeked them,
Yeah.
and make them feel, like, comfortable to say, like, "Mum, Dad, like, this has come up on my phone," and not to, you know, be angry at them, just, like, support them and, like, make sure that
Mhm.
they're comfortable in that, and, also to perhaps check in, say like, "Oh, like, what you've been looking at today, tell me if there's any concerns that you've had on these, like, platforms." And
Mhm.
again, just to have perhaps those curfews about, like, "Come on, let's try and cut down the old screen time. Like, let's not have our phones at the table.
Yeah.
Have your phone up to about 9 o'clock in the evening, and, like, let's all chuck our phones away." Like, perhaps mirror that with parents. Parents are guilty of being the slave to this mobile phone device. So let's be honest.
Oh,
We have to
for
be a
sure.
bit of let's have to be a bit of an advocate of our own child as well.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so let's all be it together. But the tech companies, I'm sad to say that profit over lives is
Yeah.
paramount at the moment, but
Mhm.
it's we all need to pull together. And AI now, oh my god, where do we start with that? That's like the deep fake stuff, and
Mhm. And, like, I know we can't hold off forever, but all of these things is why I'm going to delay access as long as possible because I know once we
absolutely.
give it, it's just a lot of work and it's a lot of worry and it is a lot of conversations. But if you are delaying, I think those conversations are still really important because kids are getting access on school devices or friends' devices to these sort of things as well. Do you think that social media access is necessary at some point for teens? Do you think that, it's our responsibility, obviously, to introduce it, that it exists, but the risks are so high? Like, what do you think about when's the right time to give it or if we have to give it at all?
Well, as you know, a child's brain doesn't fully develop till nearly 25.
Yeah.
And for the flood of information that comes across with any social media platforms is
Mhm.
really, really consuming. It's overwhelming. And for a child that's trying to navigate as being a child in the first place
Mhm.
with new environments of, like, schooling, learning about their sexuality, learning about how to navigate through the world, and they're
Yeah.
consumed by social media. Social media can influence them, how they're going to be growing up, like their body images and like their mindset, and like it
Yeah.
is an absolute minefield. To hold off until at least 16, I think, is the way to go. Absolutely
Yeah.
have a mobile
Agree.
phone in an environment that mobile phone is completely stripped down to have
Mhm.
text messages, or the availability to have for parents whereabouts, the basics. They do not need to be
Yeah.
flooded with this content.
Mhm. And iPhones are really
Um,
hard to do that with, and we're lucky we have kid-safe phones now, right? That this is a, like, Bark phone, it looks just like an iPhone.
Yeah, I've read up very briefly about the Bark phone, and there's
Yeah.
lots of schools that me and Holly have been into that have saying that having a phone like stripped back, or they've actually they have a curfew with the phones. Excuse me. So when they
Mhm.
go into school, they put it into a bank. They can't connect to
Yeah.
that phone until after school. The
Yeah.
thing is, with the UK, every school's got their own rules and regulations. We all need to be in compliant of having the same thing, because otherwise you've
Mhm.
got that peer pressure. Like,
Yeah.
oh, I have a smartphone and you have a basic phone, and then that person with the smartphone is able to influence that person who has not got that smartphone, and
Yeah.
whatever that trend is. Do you know what I mean? It's still a domino effect.
Yeah.
It's still,
Yeah. For sure. And so delaying in community is so important, because
yeah.
then your kid's not the one left out. And it's easier for the parents and it's easier for everyone. Lisa, thank you so much for having the strength to share the story today, but also to take legal action, because, here in the US, it's been really hard to pass any laws to protect kids online, especially federally. And so we're not getting the protections we deserve. And another way we can do that is by highlighting the harms through lawsuits. And so that's really important. And it takes a lot of bravery to do that. It putting yourself out there, kind of reliving this horrible situation over and over. And I am just really grateful, and parents are really grateful to you and the other parents who've joined together to expose these harms. So thank you. And is there anything else that you want to share before we close out?
Well, again, just thank you for listening to our stories. And yeah, it is hard, but we just want all parents out there to know that we're fighting for them. It unfortunately is too late for us, but we are determined to fight for those children of now and the future, and our children's legacies to live on. And we will not stop. We will not stop.
Thank you. And you're saving lives truly just through this conversation, by parents hearing it and now making safer decisions or having conversations with their children about harms like this one. And so, Lisa, thank you so much.
Oh, thank you, Nikki.